Do you have a time set down in your schedule when you're ready to write, and then when that time comes up, it seems like things just happen? Something else calls you away, or suddenly you feel like you have to do some other task that's really important. All of those things are examples of your brain doing this thing that I'm going to talk about. Our brains are wired to resist change. If you're not writing regularly, but you want to write regularly, that is a change that you are proposing that you adopt in your life. Or maybe you were doing regular writing before and you got sidetracked. Maybe you had a book launch or something like that, and you got away from writing for a while, but now you're ready to dive back into your next book and it's not happening. You are asking your brain to change. You're asking it to shift from what it's used to doing right now into doing something else. We have to realize that for the brain, this is considered dangerous. Our brains as humans are wired to resist change, and resist they will. Change, even small change, is seen by the brain as a threat, as something that it has to protect you from. The reason is the way that we have evolved as humans, the way that our brains have evolved to prioritize safety and efficiency. If you think about how your brain usually works, it's really good at getting efficient at things. Like imagine when you first started driving, and when you first were learning it, it seemed like it was a lot. You have to worry about what your feet are doing on the gas and the brake. You have to worry about what's around you. You have to check your rear view mirrors. You have to watch how you're steering. You have to watch the road signs. You got to see what's coming at you. There's all this stuff that you have to think about. If you'll recall, it took a while to get past that stage. But the more you learned about doing all these various things, the more automatic they all became. Now you can drive while your brain's thinking about your story. I mean, it's like this automatic thing you do now. That is an example of your brain's ability to be efficient. It learns things and develops habits so that you don't have to think so hard about it anymore. So this is a good thing in how we evolve, but it's a bad thing when it comes to trying to establish a new writing routine or to re-establish perhaps an old writing routine. According to scientific research, when we face something new, the amygdala part of the brain, this is the instinctive part of the brain. This is the animalistic part of the brain. It is the old part of the brain that's been there since, humans began. Instinctive part that makes us react with fight or flight when we're afraid of something. It is the part that is very interested in detecting any sort of threat and protecting you from it. Whenever we face something new, anything new, even a slight change in our routines, the amygdala can see that as a type of threat. Even though the danger is not really dangerous, we're asking ourselves to create a new routine, to do something new in our day that we haven't been doing ever or haven't been doing maybe for a few months. We're asking our brains to shift. If you think about your usual routine, get up, you have breakfast, you brush your teeth, you get ready to go to work if you go to work, or you get ready to take care of the kids, whatever your day entails, you have a routine already going, and your brain has gotten efficient at managing that routine. It knows how to do it. You don't have to think about it. You go through your day, you do your thing. No big deal unless some new thing comes up. A change in your routine, such as you are asking it to do by incorporating some new writing time, can be seen as that new scary thing that's coming up that all of a sudden wakes up your brain. It's like, wait a minute, I had everything efficient here. Everything was going along, and now you're trying to mess it up with this new thing you're trying to insert into the day. Okay, I'm not sure I want to do this. At the same time, there's that other part of your brain. It's right here in the front. It's called the prefrontal cortex. This is your thinking part of the brain. This is your logical part of the brain. This is the part of the brain that knows what's good for you and what you should be doing and is telling you to sit down and create a new writing routine so you can get this story done. It is interested in your long-term goals and in fulfilling your potential, but it is a newer part of the brain evolutionarily speaking. It came along a little bit later as humans got better at thinking and needed to reason things out and have more of a logical approach. So we have this prefrontal cortex in the front of our brains. This is the newer part of the brain, the more logical part of the brain, the part that's watching out for you and your writing. But it has to work hard to override what your amygdala, your instinctive brain, is wanting to do. The amygdala, at the end of the day, is more powerful. your instinctive brain is more powerful. It's why when you see that delicious chocolate brownie in front of you, it's really hard to resist it even if you're on a diet, because your instinctive part of the brain is going yum, and your prefrontal cortex is going now wait a minute, and meanwhile your amygdala is going reaching for that brownie, and probably it's already in your mouth. The prefrontal cortex is a little slower. It doesn't react as fast. It knows that you're on a diet and you shouldn't eat that brownie, but it's having a hard time holding back that amygdala part of your brain. The same thing happens when you go to write. You have a new writing time. Your amygdala part of the brain is going to see that as a type of threat. So it's going to create inside of you a feeling of resistance. Even if you really want to write, even if you're looking forward to working on this story, even if you had a writing routine before, and you took a break for whatever reason, you want to get back to it, this isn't like all that new in your life, but it's still going to resist it because your instinctive brain sees this change as a threat. Psychologist Charles Duhigg, in his book, The Power of Habit, explained that we form habits at all because of the brain's desire to be efficient and to keep us safe and protected. So it creates these habits and we go about our lives easily without too much thought because the brain's intention is to do that. When we attempt to break these patterns, your brain is so good at being efficient that it has got you into this new routine, and when you're like, okay, it's time to go back to writing, your brain's like, no, that's not the routine, that's not what we're doing. It creates that resistance. It doesn't mean that you can't make this change. It just means that your prefrontal cortex, that thinking part of your brain, is going to have to work harder to get past the amygdala's resistant efforts. The second psychological reason this can be tough to do is based on fear. Psychologist Carol Dweck did some research on mindset, and she found that many times we are resistant to starting a new task because somehow fear is in the mix. For writers, this is really common, right? If you're thinking about that new story you want to start, or you're thinking about getting back on a story that maybe you were away from for a while, fear is going to come up somewhere in your brain because we want people to like our stories. We want to be good writers. We want what we pen that day to be good. We often are unable to just sit down and write for the fun of it. It'd be great if we could do that all the time. Sometimes we can do that. Sometimes we get into the flow and we can do that. But oftentimes the thoughts of other parts of the writing process intrude. We think about, will this book do well on the market? Will people like this book? Will I get good reviews on this book? Will this book be considered good? So all those fears come into play. The instant you feel any sort of fear, here goes your amygdala again. It's going to protect you. It's going to rise to the challenge and stand in front of you with its shield and say, okay, if writing scares you, then we won't do writing today. We'll come up with something else we have to do. And voila, you're off doing something else that you convinced yourself in the moment was important, but it really wasn't. And later on, when you're looking back on it, you're feeling disappointed and you're feeling guilty that you didn't get your writing done. Not your fault, really. It's because in the moment, you weren't aware of what was going on. In the moment, you didn't realize that your amygdala was putting up this big resistance because it felt the fear and it was trying to protect you. As writers, when we're trying to establish a regular writing habit or get back into writing after being away from it for a while, if it's not happening for you, it's probably because of these two facets of human psychology. Number one, any sort of change feels like a threat. And number two, there's probably some fear involved in how you feel about getting back to your writing. So what is the key takeaway here? Getting started is the key to everything for writers. No matter what it is that you're working on. If you're working on a new book, a new story, growing your blog, creating a new freebie for your email subscribers, whatever it may be, getting started is the hardest part. Because that's when all this resistance comes into play. That's when you're asking your brain to make a change, which it sees as a threat, and you may have a little fear in your mind about this project and how it may come out. Those two things together are going to try to keep you from getting started on this project. Here's the good news. Getting over this hump is not hard. You just have to be aware of what's going on. Once you know what's happening, you've got it made. Because at that point you can say, oh, aha, now I know what's going on. I'm not going to be swayed to go pay attention to an email or a text message or something else when I should be writing, because I know that that's the fear talking, or I know that that's my brain thinking that I need to get back into my old routine. No, I want to do this new routine. So then what do? All you have to do is fool yourself into getting started. All you have to do is take your brain by the hand and say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get started and it's going to be easy. Easy is the key. What you want to do is make getting started feel easy. That is going to get past your brain's resistance to this being some sort of threat, and it's going to help you to tame any fear that you may be feeling. Keep this in mind. Every time you're about to write and something else comes up, think to yourself, how can I make this easier? Fool yourself into thinking that whatever you've got in front of you is a piece of cake. No reason for the brain to feel threatened. No reason for the brain to think this is a really hard change you're asking it to do. No, piece of cake. Something you could do in your sleep. Very easy. Now you're thinking, well, when I go to write my story, it's not necessarily easy. I understand that. But what you want to do is fool your brain. This is a psychological trick that you want to adopt in your writing routine so that you can get over the hump of getting started, because getting started is the hardest part. Once you get started, it's all downhill from there. Once you get started, you will eventually be a successful writer. I can almost guarantee that. If you can learn how to get past the hump of getting started, you can do anything. Because then you're not going to be stopping yourself from any of the tasks that you need to complete to reach your goals. The getting started is the thing. So you have to think about, how can I make this easy? Behavioral psychologist Dr. B.J. Fogg, he's the author of Tiny Habits, and he agrees with this. He has found that starting with very small, easy steps makes it more likely that we will follow through on whatever task we want to do. Here's another reason why this is. If you do something easy, and I'm going to give you some examples of how you can break these projects down to make them sound easy. When you actually follow through and do the thing, your brain releases dopamine, which is a feel-good neurotransmitter. You're going to feel good, and that's going to build motivation for the next time you want to sit down and write. You're going to say, well, remember, it felt good last time. We're just going to do this easy thing. You do it, you feel good. Dopamine releases, voila, your brain is happy. Go for smaller, achievable goals. So instead of thinking, I need to work on my novel today, okay, imagine a novel, right? 60,000 to over 100,000 words. That's a big project. That's a big thing. You're telling your brain, we got to do this big thing today. Well, of course it's going to go, that sounds bad. That sounds like a threat. I don't want to do that. So you want to break it down into its smaller components. Instead of aiming to write your novel, you're going to write a chapter, or break it down more than that. Instead of aiming to write your chapter today, you're simply going to write a scene. Or instead of aiming to write a scene, you're just going to get started writing a scene. This reduces the intimidating factor. This reduces the threat that the brain feels. Here's another way to do it. If you like word counts, instead of saying I need to write 2,500 words today, you say I need to write 500 words today. If you're having a bad day, say I need to write 100 words today. I need to write 50 words today. Break it down, break it down, break it down. There is no goal that is too small. Even writing one sentence is better than nothing at all. Why? Because when you write that one sentence, your brain is going to release the dopamine. Your brain is going to feel good. Your brain is going to start associating the sitting down and writing thing to feeling good. And that's what you want, because that will build up the momentum you want to create this new habit. If word counts aren't your thing, then think of it in terms of time. Instead of saying I'm going to sit down and write for an hour today, I'm going to sit down and write for 30 minutes. If that sounds like it's too intimidating, I'm going to sit down and write for 15 minutes. If you had a bad day, I'm going to sit down and write for 5 minutes. I'm going to sit down and write for 60 seconds. It doesn't matter. Keep shrinking it until your brain's like, okay, fine, I can do that. Then you sit down and you do it. 60 seconds, you're done. Maybe you only wrote 5 words, but that 5 words is still going to release dopamine in your brain. I encourage you to try this. It really works. In summary, break it down, break it down, break it down. Smaller, 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 smaller. Smaller goals, smaller tasks for that day, and you will be able to overcome resistance and make it happen. So I hope you'll give it a try. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.